You're tuned in to 93.5 KNCE, Truth House Radio. This is your host, Chris Pieper, for Living with Earth. And that was The Times They Are A-Changin' by Bob Dylan. And they certainly are. So I, for one, am excited about the changes that are coming, because I think people really, truly are waking up. And it's people like Jonah that have the courage for a new vision, and acting on that is an entirely other thing. And Jonah is certainly acting on it. And so, Jonah, welcome to KNCE.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for coming. So, Jonah, tell us, for those that aren't so familiar with you, you've lived here a while, and you've worked with your dad, Mike Reynolds, but tell us a bit about your own history and upbringing.
Well, I'm 51, was born here at the Old Holy Cross Hospital, room number 9, and was, like you mentioned, kind of born into my father's work, which is based on a lot of other people's work, and have been designing and building sustainable off-grid buildings for decades all over the world. From growing up playing around on job sites to like, okay, there's something going on here, realizing what it can do at an early age, how it can help people. And my parents split when I was young, and my mother moved to Los Angeles, so I bounced back and forth a lot in those two very extreme environments.
Yes, yeah. And I remember when I first met you, you came into Mud and Flood, it must have been 20 years ago, and you were getting supplies for, I believe, the tsunami. In India,
yeah. So adaptable, quick, sustainable buildings that have all these off-grid living systems are ideal for disaster relief. So in India, the second day we were there, we had a flush toilet. And, for us when we were camping in the jungle and all that. So we were there for about 10 days or so and put up a building with catch water, and it's strong and it's simple and easy to build. And we've heard that they've since built a few more because we teach. So doing the disaster relief things is very effective. We learn a lot about the rest of the world and the rest of the world's cultures when we go do this. And then also what is appropriate? What do we really need to live and thrive? And it's really simple, without getting excessive. So yeah, we were in there, getting camping gear and all that to go live in the jungle. So that's a whole story.
We could do a whole segment on that easily, because your history is remarkable. But we're not here to talk about your history. We're here to talk about moving forward here with this new project idea. So, first of all, what's the name of your company?
Pangea Biotexture.
And so what inspired the name Pangea?
Well, Pangea is the name of, I think it's the original continent.
Yep.
When all the continents were together a long, long time ago.
It was about 250 million years ago, because I studied geology.
Nice.
But yeah, okay.
Yeah, so kind of the concept and idea there is that we're all together. So the, I guess, mantra you can say with the company because of that is together we're strong. So that means a lot to us. That's the only way we can do things together, anything, even this project. I'm playing my role, but it's a much larger team. So together we're strong.
Well, I think that's a great name, and it means all lands. And what I find very inspiring about your plan is that you're not just, you mentioned sustainable a couple of times, but I see what you're doing here as a step beyond that. That, there's the extractive model, which is we just pull resources from the land. There's the sustainable model, which we keep things as they are. But then there's the regenerative model, where we actually improve the land. And from what I've seen, your development plans will improve the land.
Well, that's the idea. That's the goal, the land and the people. So, for example, for every 100 gallons that is used, we're putting 80 into the ground. And, that's a guess. But and so we're expecting probably taking 20 out of the ground, but putting 80 in through catch water and gray water and all these things. So every system, soil building, the water, producing food, we want to make everything, enhance it, beautify it, make it stronger through these off-grid living systems. And just to take that one step further, is it looks like we're environmentalists, right? Where that's not the first intention. The first intention is really logical. What's the right thing to do? It ends up being these regenerative, sustainable systems. That's a beautiful result. And if you follow the logic, which is really nature, it all makes sense. And you follow those rhythms, you follow those designs, and everything just kind of works from that.
Well, I love that, because unlike pharmaceutical medicines, which all have negative side effects, the side effects of this are positive.
Yes.
Yeah. So give us an overview of the project. So, like, how much land, how many structures, what kind of structures, and so forth.
Well, yeah. So there was, as everyone knows, a previous plan, and our total build out is just under a third of the amount of buildings, and it's right around 330 acres. And to do a sustainable, regenerative community. Affordables for seniors, affordable workforce, market value buildings, commercial buildings, everything centered around food production, and the ultimate goal is making safe the people. I think we have a realistic shot here of solving homelessness in Taos County and food poverty. So the housing, making sure they're affordable with off-grid living systems, and producing as much food as we possibly can.
And so let's take a look at, like, just one of the home units. I know with the earthship community, you do a fantastic job of dealing with human waste, of capturing water, of generating or capturing energy, both solar hot water and electricity. Tell us about what one of those homes would be like. Like, would there be an electricity bill, or water bill? Tell us about it.
We're not planning to connect to the electrical grid at all, even though there are power lines right down the highway. I don't want to get into a thing where we're labeling the buildings. They are sustainable and off-grid, or mostly off-grid, because we're planning on having a little bit of water backup. And there'll be many, many different designs. There's a lot of brilliant designers and builders here in Taos, and we want to be inclusive and bring everyone in together, like we were talking Pangea, together we're strong.
Yeah.
A lot of different building materials, pumicecrete, rammed earth, adobe, which is, been here for over 1,000 years.
Yeah,
right?
Hold on one second. We're gonna go ahead and take a break, and we will be right back. You're tuned into 93.5 KNCE. Into 93.5 KNCE, True Taos Radio. This is your host, Chris Pieper, for Living with Earth. And today we have the privilege of speaking with Jonah Reynolds about this new development. And so, Jonah, you were talking about kind of the systems that these homes are going to employ for water, for waste, and so forth. Tell us a bit more.
Yeah, I can run you through them. So every system that goes into a home to take care of us. The idea is that these buildings take care of us without us needing to take care of them. So all the water, or most of the water, is caught from the sky, put into cisterns, run through filters, so we supply potable water. And but I can't guarantee how much water people use, and I also can't guarantee how much or little water comes out of the sky. Mm-hmm. This winter has been very dry. A couple of years ago, I think it was more of a wet winter. So we're planning on doing 1, maybe 2, definitely not more than 3 wells. I am hoping to do one on the Pueblo side, just so that we can have that paid over to the Pueblo. Mm-hmm. It's all their water anyway, as a backup. So for those reasons, and I'm guessing that's probably going to be 25% of water use in a home. But the earthship community, the greater world, is a great example, and there are no wells out there. There's a community well.
Right, and let's compare that, just compare and contrast. By the way, there was a question. So what is the housing development called? Do you have a name for this development?
Well, right now it's Pangea Community.
Okay, great. So just if we compare, and well, maybe just contrast the water use that you're talking about with the Tarleton, what was it? Tarleton Eco something. They were going to use water from a deep well located out by the airport. That was the plan, to be supplied by El Prado Water and Sanitation. I think that well's 900 feet. This is a very different approach, very different. But you're gonna have some wells, but those wells are going to supplement the water that you're capturing from the sky.
Well, just one.
Yeah.
Just one.
Okay.
And we might do another one just as an emergency backup.
Sure. Okay.
So that water gets used in the home, potable, everything like that, and then it goes down the drain. Mm-hmm. So everything except the toilet and the dishwasher goes into what we call gray water planters, usually inside the home. It's basically something like the Florida Everglades contained in a rubber-lined planter, where all the plants and good bacteria eat the bad bacteria, and the end result through another carbon filter is what we call treated gray water. Now, there's a conventional definition of gray water, which is right out of all the drains, and it just sits in a tank and gets really nasty. That's bad.
Right, yeah.
Our definition of gray water, which is what I call treated gray water, is after this planter, and then we send it over to the toilet to flush with. And the toilet uses about 1/3 or more, everyone's different, of all the water you're going to use. So we're cutting that out of having to supply that fresh water into a toilet.
Well, yes, let's just stop there for a second, because it is one of the craziest things that modern people do is we poop in
potable
our drinking water. So and then we have to take that water and go through all these steps to treat it, because now it's not a toxin, but it's a pollutant potentially. And one of the major sources of pollution is from sewage treatment plants. So
it's really bad. I mean, in the roughly 30 minutes we've been talking, and I don't know the exact stats, but I use this in all the lectures I do, is a shockingly amount of kids die from lack of potable water in an hour and 30 minutes. And like you said, we're pooping in drinking water when there's people who don't have access to it and are suffering because they don't have access to it. Yeah. So that's a very, very important point. So then all the water goes in the gray water planter except the toilets and the dishwasher. They go out to what we call a black water planter, which is outside. The treated gray water that we flush the toilets with, to the human eye and nose, you can't tell it's any different than potable water. Mm-hmm. It's cleaned. It's treated, run through a carbon filter. So then we flush the toilet, and the toilet goes outside into a septic tank. And then from there, it goes into what we call a black water planter, which is the exact same thing as a gray water planter, rubber lined, but it's outside. The dishwasher goes there too. And then the same thing. It's treated by all these plants, and there's stats about how much water each plant transpires and all that, which can all be figured out. And then usually there's not much water left after that. But after that black water planter is a conventional leach field. And that's just to get permits, right? Yeah. They're usually not really used. So our goal is to have in this community 3 black water planters so that we end up with what is the equivalent of treated gray water, cleaned. So then we can put it into the micro farms and these earthship walapinis that we're going to build so that we don't have leach fields. Leach fields, in my opinion, are not really a good idea because it leaches into the ground. And if you have a lot of buildings in a dense spot, which we're keeping this community very low dense, but still, it can pollute the aquifers. So, but there are codes and regulations about flow on a certain amount of acreage and the quality of it, which is why we're doing those 3 planters to end up with the equivalent of treated gray water. And then that gets into the whole food production. So that's kind of the path of the water through the entire thing.
Well, I love that. And, you know, it's interesting to note that there's something called peak phosphorus,
right,
which we're experiencing right now. People can read about it, where the world's production of phosphorus fertilizer has peaked and is now in decline. And some people are saying world wars could be fought over phosphorus. And yet, one person's urine collected over a year is enough to provide phosphorus for 5 acres of land. So we're literally peeing this resource down the drain. And so you have a totally different approach here, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and it gets back to the concept we were talking about, regenerative. So the water, which is, you know, like I said, this treated gray water that we want to put back in onto the land to grow a ton of food, has all these amazing nutrients and all this good stuff in it, which helps to enhance the land. And then you get into permaculture principles where we want to keep water on the land. So a lot of these black water planters that have been done at the Greater World Earthship community, they're like Mohawks of Costa Rica. Owls come, butterflies come, frogs, lizards in this kind of, you know, most of the planters are like a rectangle, and in this rectangle kind of a lush forest jungle thing that happens. And imagine if we have 100 of those. Imagine if those are bigger, right? And then we bring in permaculture principles and keep water on the land and do micro farming all over the place. And so it's not only sagebrush, which I'm not an expert, but I think it puts out an oil that doesn't let other things grow.
Yes.
So we keep water on the land, and then it has an effect potentially on weather and all that. So that's the water, that's the wastewater. The way the buildings heat and cool themselves with no machine, no AC. It's nice to have a crackling fireplace or a wood stove, so that's all good. There's radiant floor, which is basically running water through tubes in the floor, and you can heat or cool that water. But we typically orient the buildings to the south, although that's not required in this community. We can face them, you know, toward the mountain or whatever. That's where radiant floor kind of makes it okay.
And how do you heat the
water?
The water and the radiant floor?
That's with solar water heaters. So the water is run through a unit where the heat from the sun hits the water, and it runs through everything. We also have those solar water heaters before, like a typical Rinnai, which is the brand, hot water heater for just household use. So then that Rinnai solar-powered electric water heater, they're amazing these days, doesn't have to work so hard. So instead of starting with 40-degree water, for example, from the cistern in the winter, because it's buried, it's starting out with, you know, even on like a cloudy day, that solar water heater still does something. So then that solar electric Rinnai water heater can start with 50 or 60 degrees. So it has to work less, which means we use less energy. We're interacting with the rhythms of nature, and so then our power systems don't have to be crazy big, like $100,000 power systems. They can be 20 or even $15,000 power systems, depending on how much power that building is going to use. So that's the water heating, solar, electric. We've done wind, but wind has moving parts, so it typically breaks once or twice a year. We're probably going to do microhydro because there's a moving creek there. I'm not planning on using any water from the acequias, from the creek, from any of that, because we're just going to catch it all, and then I have the gray water and black water coming back onto the land that's treated. So that's the heating, cooling, that's the power, that's the water, and then composting, worm farmed, biochar to again regenerate and build more soil.
Right.
We want to keep everything in the community, all that kind of compost and things like that. But what I think we can do, and I'm not an expert, it may look like it because these gray water planters and black water planters, I mean, we harvest bananas and papayas in February. You throw a seed or a plant in there, it goes crazy.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're planning on all the food that the community is going to need, and we're doing one cafe and one restaurant, as well as everyone living there. All the food will be produced from the community.
Okay, great. We have a question here, which we were going to get into anyways. But
Sure.
So tell us about kind of the building structures themselves. Kind of what we've talked before that they're not the earthship style. You're going to do something different, and you're going to be employing a new technology for building. So talk about that. Right.
So an earthship is a building with all off-grid living systems. No fossil fuels, no machines, nothing. You can build an earthship out of pumice or rammed earth, poured concrete. We're doing in the process of pulling 3 more permits. We already have one in Southern California for this. They're concrete earthships. I like to call them just sustainable off-grid buildings rather than a brand. And so we've been watching these things called 3D printing, and a lot of people have heard about them. They've kind of been a novelty about printing little things on a desk, printing with cement. But now we're in the process of bringing a 3D printer machine that prints with concrete. It looks like a big rock star stage, right? A rock concert stage. It fits into a 40-foot container. Concrete is thermal mass. We've done tests decades ago about what materials hold temperature the best. That's how these buildings stay comfortable in any climate. Beer actually works the best at holding temperature, which is similar to pumicecrete because it has the thermal mass qualities, but also all the little air pockets, which is more insulative. Pumicecrete is amazing. The point is that there's a lot of different building methods, materials, and designs to achieve a building that is appropriate. If it's 100% off-grid, great. If it's 15% off-grid, great. It's light years ahead of, stick frame conventional stuff. So we're planning on bringing in a 3D printer. We're working with a company called Cobod. It allows us to print about 1,000 square feet in a week with all the conduit and plumbing in it. We can set it to an 8-inch thick wall all the way to 12 or 14-inch thick walls, and it's a solid concrete wall that we're going to be putting steel in it, and a bond beam up on top to receive any kind of a roof. We're probably going to be doing some with SIP panels. We're going to be experimenting to dome over with the 3D printer, so it's all one method. This 3D printer machine can run on solar. It can also run on biodiesel. Yeah. So the 3D printer, it also allows us to lower the cost per square foot. So it's a game changer. It allows sustainable off-grid buildings to be built fast, to be built way more affordable. So like we were talking earlier, it has significant implications for disaster relief. But if we're doing 1,000 square feet in a week, how many units can we do in 7 months, right? Mm-hmm. And if we keep those small and appropriate, like affordable housing,
right.
And I'm talking about people who are couch surfing, living out of their backpacks, who are homeless, all the stress and trauma and anxiety that goes with that. I know a bunch of people who don't have a place. Mm-hmm. I know people who have left Taos because they can't afford Taos. Taos is expensive in rent. So this gives us a really big opportunity here to produce a lot of affordable housing and make safe the people, so that I think realistically we can come to a day where there are no people here who are homeless.
Oh, great. So a couple of questions. So when you say affordable, what kind of monthly cost are you talking? Is your goal to have people own these homes, or are many of them going to be rentals? And what are the kind of the phases of this development as you see it? How's it going to start?
Right. Well, pretty much all of them are going to be sold. Mm-hmm. It is of our opinion that the idea and the definition of affordable, there's a spectrum, mm-hmm. right? There's people who are homeless. It is our opinion that on that end of the spectrum, it is unrealistic to purchase a home. Mm-hmm. Putting down 20 grand, 30 grand, getting financing, just the stress and trauma and anxiety from not knowing where you're going to sleep the next night. The idea of going through the whole home buying purchase is just completely inappropriate in our opinion. So we're designing buildings that are hotel size, roughly 350 square feet, 400 square feet, somewhere in there, with all of these off-grid living systems, so there won't be utility bills. And having that concept in someone's heart and brain when they're living in a home, that the building takes care of them. They don't have to like, oh God, I have to go pay the gas bill in a month. How am I going to do that? Or the electric bill. Right. It's always going to be there, right? There will be power. There will be water. Things aren't going to freeze. And so we're designing it in a way where it's going to be $500 a month. People can move in with first and last, and they're in.
Wow. That is huge, because I think, according to the state of New Mexico, what qualifies as affordable housing in terms of cost?
Right. I think it's around $1,200 in that neighborhood, which is just unrealistic, Yeah. But like I said, it's a spectrum. So affordable for some people means that, but we have to start with the people most in need. Mm-hmm. Nothing else works. Nothing else can happen until we make safe the people there. Mm-hmm. So that's why we're starting there. And the other buildings, the workforce housing, those types of things, they're all affordable, when you start to compare with things, especially when you have off-grid living systems. So there's a lot of people that we need to make safe and take care of. That's where we start. It's inappropriate to, in our opinion, to do pretty much anything else without making safe the people first and also. Mm-hmm. When you do things that are sustainable and regenerative and off-grid, it makes everything work. You can't do real affordable housing without them being regenerative and off-grid and sustainable, both in terms of money and finances, but more importantly, taking care of the people and the community, right? So the 3D printer makes a huge difference there, because time is money, and we can build buildings fast, 1,000 square feet in a week, and they're strong. So when I can do things that are faster, the cost lowers, and I still get to have all the off-grid living systems. Mm-hmm. The other thing we're doing is we're wrapping our academy around all of this. So we're going to teach it all, and we're going to bring in as many students as we can fit into doing all of this, which helps even further. So instead of having my 10-person crew, or in addition to having my 10-person crew, who invariably end up being teachers, I can have 30 students also around that learn this but provide a lot of labor, which is faster.
Oh, I think that's one of the approaches the earthship community has had that has always really impressed me is that you've got these students that are coming in that are learning this new style of building, taking those skills back to their countries, because oftentimes people come from all over the world. I've met them in Mud and Flood for the earthship community. And so let me ask you a couple questions about the 3D printer, because you said 1,000 square foot a week. Does that mean the walls, or what does that exactly mean when you say 1,000 square foot per week?
All the main structural walls, the interior walls. We're going to play around with, can we print some of the sides of counters and cabinets at the same time? So it brings us all the way on up to put the roof on.
Wow. Okay.
Slabs and footings also.
I mean, this is the kind of technology that I'm really excited about. I'm not so excited about the new iPhone version that's coming out, or although that is intriguing. But when we're talking about systems that are ecological, because humans can be very clever, and that cleverness can get us into trouble, as we've seen all over the world. But this is a game changer.
It is,
I think. And so a 3D printer, you're literally just little bits at a time dropping concrete, or in some cases Adobe, and so it's just going in a circle. Explain to us a little more how that works.
Yeah. So I can we use software called ArchiCAD. There's also Revit on the Windows if you're into Windows. It's all good, but we can import that CAD file directly into the printer, and then it prints. So when we print a piece of paper with our desktop printer, we're not doing anything. We're just making sure that it doesn't get jammed or there's enough ink, right? And so in this case, same thing. They call them pilots that run the printer. There's 3 or 4 of them. Same thing. They're just making sure it doesn't get clogged and there's enough concrete going into it, which we've already checked the engineering specs over at TGP last summer to make sure that it works, Taos Gravel Products. But that being said, we're going to use all the gravel companies, the concrete companies here, to partner with. And so then the printer just does it. I'm learning about it. Apparently the printers like to do curves better than 90-degree angles, but it'll do them all. And you just kind of sit back, you make sure the conduit and all the plumbing and everything is temporarily held up while the printer nozzle comes by. It looks like it's moving slow, but it can do it 24 hours, right? So a week later, it's roughly about 1,000 square feet. Slabs, footings, walls, all the little interior things also are all up.
I encourage everybody out there to Google this and watch some videos, because I have, and it's very,
amazing.
Very cool.
But the other thing that it gives us a conventional building. Unlike still when I talk to clients and lectures, it's like, tires? Are you like, really? For real? That's kind of weird. I explain it, and then it's amazing, and it is. It's a totally amazing thing. But in terms of building departments, especially in California, when people see a concrete and steel wall in the drawings, in the permit drawings, it's normal, it's conventional.
Yeah.
So that's the other part of the game changer, is that it makes these sustainable off-grid buildings conventional in terms of permitting.
Right. And let's I want to acknowledge the work that your dad and so many people have done with the earthship community.
Joe Hoare?
Yes, Joe Hoare. Yes. He was a good man. He put in the plumbing for our house. God rest his soul.
Yes.
That you are building on the foundation that has been created, all these systems that have been perfected over the years. But these are not earthships. And you were saying that unlike the earthship community where people are more isolated, that this is going to encourage community, people to get together. Talk about that a bit.
We're putting everything we know and have into this. This is the dream that we've been dreaming about doing. Having smart homes, having greenhouse maintenance, having our seniors living in the same place as their kids, and then their kids are also living in the same place. So we get to mix the elderly and the wisdom there with the kids in maybe growing some food, right? Which is very good for us with all the microbiomes and everything. And we're designing the commercial part, no outside corporations, no outside labor. We're keeping everything in Taos. And so the commercial part is being designed so that, like you said, it encourages community. It encourages our very diverse and beautiful cultures to learn from each other by hanging out and living together and growing food. And there'll be a medical clinic there. There'll be a cafe and a restaurant. And you know, so it's not just here's a bunch of land, here's a bunch of residential buildings. That's it.
Yeah.
The HOA will be very strict, but the word I use a lot is righteous, you know, to encourage and really set people free. Because the whole idea here is, you know, if you're in the business of doing things sustainably, you're in the business of putting yourselves out of business so that we're not needed. So the idea is, and I'm not an expert. I have an amazing team, and that we're all contributing and putting everything we have into this to design the community that we all have in our dreams. You know, what's the best way?
And that's fantastic. Everything is very intriguing and wonderful. And tell us, because you've mentioned that you're working also with Taos Pueblo. Is that something you can talk about a bit?
Yeah. So it is. I have my opinions about how our the culture that I come from has the things that it has done over the centuries. Not just in this continent, but around the world. I mean, look at what's going on today. It is totally bonkers. I felt like it was critically important to bring this idea last summer, and it landed in our lap. This whole idea of doing anything over there on that land. You know, we were looking at doing something over by the airport or something, you know, a community. Just to be like, to bring it to families on the Pueblo, the tribal government, about here's an opportunity, and this is an idea, this is a plan. What do you think? What's your advice? What's your guidance? How best can we do this? I am very ignorant. There's a lot I don't know. And there's a lot of words and descriptors that I'm going to make mistakes on, but we need to learn. So the idea was to bring it there and learn, and I've integrated a lot of things that I've learned from a lot of those meetings into the plan.
And you're having actually a meeting out at the Pueblo. This is not for the larger community in Taos, but Saturday, February 8th, for those Pueblo listeners out there, at the Taos Pueblo Heritage Center. There's going to be a meeting from 1 to 3. And then this Sunday, February 9th, there's a meeting for Taos residents or anybody that's interested at the Arroyo Seco Community Center. And this is happening also from 1 to 3. So if people want more information, do you have a website? Do you have a way people could contact you? If there's anybody out there that's interested in investing in this, tell us how would they contact you and where should they go for more information?
Our website is pangeabiotexture.com, PangeaBiotecture.com. And there's a link in there under buildings called community. There's the article in Taos News that you can link to also. And the website for these events is pangea-projects.com.
Okay.
So you can check out everything about the meetings there. And
Okay,
there
great.
is room for investment. People who want to buy in and live there, contact us.
Well, very good. And I encourage people out there, because if we are going to move our human community and this planet in a different direction, a part of that is going to be financial, that people that have money need to start thinking, not in terms of how they can just increase their own assets, but to improve their communities, to invest in things that regenerate the earth, regenerate the human spirit. And I think when people hear of projects like this, it does really help with people that are feeling really low right now, because there's something that we can look forward to. And I really am grateful, because it certainly has elevated my spirits every time I've spoken to you. So we're going to end here with a little song, and this is called Keep Changing the World, and this is by Mike's Chair. But once again, let's just review a couple of things. Jonah Reynolds from Pangea, and what's the whole name? Pangea?
Pangea Biotexture.
Pangea Biotexture. So that's Pangea, Pangea, which means all lands in Greek. It refers to the supercontinent that existed 250 million years ago. You can check that out online. It's beautiful. But I think the name's important, and I think you chose that name very well. And this Saturday, February 8th, out at the Taos Pueblo Heritage Center from 1 to 3, there is a meeting, informational meeting. And then this Sunday, from 1 to 3 at the Arroyo Seco Community Center. And then Saturday, March 1st, at the Wildflower Playhouse, 1 to 3 p.m. also. And then Saturday, March 8th, again, out at, at the TCA. Hopefully that'll be a packed house from 1 to 3. You can find this on their website. Thank you all for tuning in. We're going to play a little song here, and this is Keep Changing the World by Mike's Chair.